Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this council meeting of February the 5th, 2024 to order. And I will request that we please stand for the national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. Please be seated. Well, it's very nice to have some members of our community in the gallery tonight. Thank you very much for coming out. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate council chambers through this exit. And if any instructions are required, once you're out of the chambers, Madam Clerk will be available to assist you. Please ensure that you place your cell phones on silent or turn them off. And lastly, the Town of Lincoln Council meetings are posted on our YouTube channel, and closed captioning is also available on all our videos by selecting the closed captioning button on the bottom of the video. The Town of Lincoln is part of Niagara Region and is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Attawandaronk, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Town of Lincoln and the Regional Municipality of Niagara stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. I also want to add that I was fortunate enough to be given a book at Christmas time that was written by Jody Wilson-Raybould, and it's probably one of the most informative books on the issue of the history around the transformation from the first contact until the Indigenous people really started to put their foot down about the way they were being treated overall. I would encourage anybody to try and find that book. It's an easy read, but quite in-depth. Members of council are all in attendance this meeting, and we also have staff attending both in person and remotely. This evening, we have Elizabeth Zimmerman from the YWCA and Regional Councillor Foster. Do members have any amendments to the order of the agenda? There being none, are there any declarations of interest? There being none, do members have any announcements? And please remember, you have a limit of 3 items. And there's been a lot happening, so let's see who we have. Councillor Njima. Just a moment. There we go. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. From the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, there's a business after 5, Thursday, February 22nd at the new West Niagara High School. I sent that out earlier on today to council. It's starting at 4:30. It's open to council members and staff who are recognized as chamber members. You just have to register. I sent the link out today. Again, if anyone is watching is interested and you're a chamber member, you can also attend as a guest if you have a friend or an associate who is a member. Go to the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce website and click News and Events, and then go to the Events Calendar and Registration sections, and you can register there. And also from the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, the Breakfast with the Politicians is this Friday at Inn on the 20 in Jordan Village in the Window Room. I'm advised that as of mid-afternoon today, there are still a few spots left, but it's going to be closing tomorrow at the end of day to register. And also, I wanted to share that Councillor Russell and I had a ward meeting January 18th, I believe it was. Thank you to the councillors Reimer and Mikulik and Regional Councillor Foster for attending. Directors McKay, Director Tunikaitis, Director Deanne, Director Ruder, and CAO Kirkopoulos, and being there to answer questions as they arose. Councillor Foster also gets peppered with a few regional questions while he's there. So thank you to him also for addressing that. Subjects came up generally were timing of some future proposed road construction, the future of the BDSS property, and some comments about proposed developments that appear to be approved but construction is not yet begun. There were other questions, but I can't go on too long about it. What's important is that these meetings provide an opportunity for residents who have to have an open conversation with staff and Councillor Russell and I, and so far this has worked very well in terms of engaging our community and gaining a clear understanding of how people are feeling on various matters. And also connecting people with Councillor Russell and I and with staff members that can assist on some issues and questions. Thanks again to all that attended, very much appreciated. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor, is there going to be a tour at West Niagara Secondary?
I hope so. I don't know. It's a good question.
Okay.
Let me find out for you.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Councillor Brunet.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to take a few minutes just to do a brief recap of the Roma conference. I know Councillor Patriva is also going to speak a little bit, but had the opportunity to travel up there from Sunday to Tuesday in Toronto. Always enjoy the Roma conference. It gives us an opportunity to meet with other councillors and other staff representatives from across Ontario, from small rural communities similar to us, usually 25,000 and less. So I always enjoy the Roma conference. CAO Kirkopoulos, Director Deanne, Director Bruder, as well as Associate Director Harris were up there, as well as yourself, Madam Mayor, and Councillor Patriva. I personally was involved in 4 delegations, 2 with the Town of Lincoln and 2 with TAPMO, the top aggregate producers, and all 4 delegations were with ministers, so that was a very positive thing. I'll speak, if I could, Madam Mayor, on the second delegation. I believe Councillor Patriva is going to speak on the first. So on Tuesday, January the 23rd, we met with Minister Kingma Surma, Minister of Infrastructure. The ask was, our intent was to talk about infrastructure funding with regards to water-related and sanitary infrastructure to support housing targets. The good news is the day before, kind of word leaked out that there was going to be some funding announcement, so I believe that worked into our favor, where we were able to go into that delegation because, for those that don't know, delegations are limited to 15 minutes, and so we went right to the chase, and we asked whether there was any limitations with regards to, we mentioned that we have actually put out a tender for a water main infrastructure into the Prudence project, upwards of around $16 million. So we talked about that and the limitations and the obstacles that might be with regards to that tender, and we received some very positive information, which I know our staff and all senior people are working on, and I think there's some really, really positive opportunities with maybe getting some potential funding to that, so that was a great delegation. Beyond the actual delegations, the one thing I love about going to Roma is the concurrent sessions and the luncheon. So on Sunday, I participated in a CMHC concurrent session, which was held with the CMHC representative Jeremy Tessier. It was titled National Housing Strategy, a Vision for Inclusive Housing, and housing is more than just a roof over our heads. He talked about an $82 billion injection over the next 10 years from CHME across Canada. Later that day, I took place in another concurrent session, which spoke about immigration in rural communities. It was actually put on by the YMCA in Simcoe and Muskoka, which I understand is the second largest YMCA in Ontario. And they talked about what they're doing with job-seeking people that are coming to the community that are new to Ontario and Canada, and connecting them with the Chamber of Commerce, libraries, language programs, Employment Ontario, et cetera, throughout the areas of Parry Sound, Midland, Huntsville, and Muskoka. The reason I mention this is because it tweaked my interest, so I came back and looked up what's happening here in Niagara. And I was pleasantly surprised to see YMCA of Niagara over the last little while has worked with employment and immigration, and 3,141 newcomers, according to their website, have received settlement support within the YMCA, throughout Niagara through the YMCA. So I was really pleased to sit in on that. In addition, Madam Mayor, I'll try to go quick, sat through a couple of luncheon sessions called Risky Business. That was about municipal risk management involving cyber insurance, artificial intelligence, cyber attacks, and cyber procurement considerations. Also, further to your comments, I sat through an Indigenous Partners Unlocking the Power of Collaboration. One of them was through Bruce County and what they're doing with Indigenous relations, heritage planning, project opportunities, archaeological management, and then another one that talked about reconciliation. One of the takeaways was reconciliation is not a trend. It's not about blame. It's not about guilt. It's not about the loss of rights. And it's not a box to be checked off. So it was a really great session, and I enjoyed it very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity to bring those comments forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I want to ask you about the TAPMO meeting, the top aggregate producing municipalities of Ontario, of which we are one of those members. And the reason I want you to talk about it is because I'm going to follow up on what you have to say, because these are very important times in our relationship with that organization and the ministry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I wanted to speak to it, but by the same token, I didn't want to go off on too many tangents, but appreciate the opportunity. So sitting on the TAPMO executive, as you well know, Madam Mayor, after sitting on the TAPMO executive for a number of years, there's been some issues with regards to taxation in municipalities and the taxes that are being paid on quarries and pits. So within the last 12 to 18 months, there has been some major Supreme Court decisions, one of which was appealed, but it was not overturned. And so now MPAC is heavily involved in ensuring that that properties are being taxed properly. If they are not being if they're not being mined, if aggregate is not being extracted, then it's okay that they potentially could be taxed at farmland rates, but anything beyond that needs to be taxed appropriately, and so there's some really important things going on there. And additionally, there's been some really other important things that have been coming out of there. There's been an Attorney General report that has just come out. It's quite a scathing report, to be honest. And we met with Minister Graydon Smith, a former mayor of the city of Bracebridge, and we met with him, and we're hoping that he does the right thing. There are quarries and pits across Ontario, some of which are supposed to be audited annually, and that have not been audited for over 20 years. And it's really a situation where there's been a lot of people turning a blind eye to a lot of this. And, if the Attorney General is aware of it, I'm pretty sure the ministry is aware of it. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that moving forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm willing to answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much, Counselor. That's great, because the money, that's lost revenue for municipalities. Thank you very, very much, Counselor Brunet. All right, Counselor Pachariva.
Okay, thanks, Your Worship. I had the opportunity to attend the delegation we had on Monday with the Minister Lisa Thompson, Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. And much like the delegation on Tuesday, we were kind of privy to some information before the fact. So the ask was, first of all, we thank the province for their continued support to Niagara's agriculture community. We thank them for their support of our rural economic development program, the labor intake stream that we've done, and the funding that they provided to that. And we were seeking rural economic development fund programs that might support us here in the town of Lincoln. And the ask is that irrigation here is paramount. We've seen yields drop in the last few years because the farmers have been unable to get water to the crops. So the ask was that the engineers have identified an environmental assessment, EA, to move forward, and the region is supporting this, and we were looking for some funds to help move this program along, knowing that, we're one of the bread baskets or fruit baskets of the province, and we need this. And Jillian Harris, our Associate Director of Public Works, had done yeoman's work on the background information and the details, and had went back and forth with staff, and Minister MacLeod looked very, very favorable on our application and our ask. And then the concurrent session that I attended was, and this is probably not sexy for the people in the crowd, but it was about the Drainage Act. So knowing that we've come across, and you were there with me, Your Worship, we're dealing with the Gavora ditch up on the escarpment, and so I was quite curious about it and attended it. And it was actually very, very good because the municipality of Chatham-Kent is actually having issues with the Drainage Act. So where there's a thoroughfare of a railroad and the fields need to be drained, in the past, the utilities have taken upon and split the cost of these. Well, lately, CN, some of the telecoms are saying that they are governed by federal law and jurisdiction, and they don't have to pay. So this is, again, a huge burden to the municipalities and the farmers and other businesses that are dealing with this. So Chatham-Kent is launching a case against the railroads to say, yes, it's your responsibility, you need to pay. So we're going to follow that closely and see some outcomes there, because it'll have dire consequences on all the municipalities. And it was actually really, very interesting. And then I always like going to the Bear Pit sessions when the ministers are up front. And though you needed to get up really, really early to ask your question, there was some going up there 2 sessions before in order to ask. But a lot of them touched upon, making municipalities whole. What are we going to do to address housing and homelessness? And issues that, it was actually quite interesting because the mayor of Burlington, Mary Ann Mead Ward, was there. She was up, she was talking. Now, Burlington is part of the big cities mayors, but she stressed that a lot of Burlington is agriculture, is rural like us. So it was quite interesting to hear her advocate on our behalf as well. So really, really interesting. And then there was another model that they talked about healthcare delivery from Thunder Bay, and how the ambulance and the healthcare and the hospitals and the police were all working together to address issues. Because there's the chronic problem of people without doctors and going to emergency rooms for help. And this was trying to get them ahead of that and deal with them at the local levels, and then kind of free up that room. So, and the program that they were running was quite successful, and might be something that we'd like to look at down here, because I was impressed with it. How they had an issue that they solved, and it's something that could be rolled out across the province.
Excellent. Thank you both, councillors, for preparing those reports, and everything that you've spoken about is extremely important and relevant to our community. Thank you very much. Councillors, we'll move on now to item 8, which is proclamations. We have no proclamations this evening. Item 9 is recognition and achievements. We have no recognition or achievements this evening. And we'll now consider item 10.1, and I'll invite Elizabeth Zimmerman, the Executive Director of the YWCA Niagara. Elizabeth's going to speak to us about YWCA programs and the Coldest Night of the Year event. Come on up, Elizabeth. It's great to see you again. And I want to acknowledge Margaret Andrews, who's sitting in the audience as well. Councillor Margaret Andrews, she looks like she's got her Coldest Night hat ready to go. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
There we go. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. I always love coming to Town of Lincoln Council because it's, for me, home. And always enthusiastic to a bunch of people here. It's been such a privilege to be part of the Housing Select Committee this year and working on affordable housing. So it's always near and dear to my heart. So in your package, you did receive some information. Oh, and before I go on, I'd like to introduce Erin Emerald, who is also a resident of Beamsville, who is our vice president of our board, and a great champion for Coldest Night. So thank you for being here tonight, Erin. Oh, thank you. Many of you know a little bit about the YWCA and what we do, but I wanted to give a little bit more information, particularly as it comes to West Niagara, and just to give also an overview of how many people come through our doors. As you know, we are a service provider that's part of the region's homelessness system, supporting women and their families with shelter, supported transitional housing, and other skills development related programs. In the past year, we supported in our shelters, in our transitional housing programs, 149 adults and 62 children. And I think one of the things I want to emphasize is the number of children that we see. That we don't talk about children experiencing homelessness, but unfortunately we see a lot of families. And that's where our transitional housing programs become really important. We had 458 adults and 96 children that came into our shelters last year. So in West Niagara, we have a supported transitional housing program. And this is a program that supports women and families in housing that we had leased with local landlords. And it's an up to a 3-year program, and it gives that woman and her family the opportunity to start building stability in their lives, and with the hope that they will be able to maintain the housing that we are at that point head leasing. And what we have found that's really important is to try to keep people in their community. And that's one of the benefits of this program, because we are able to keep people in their community. So in this past year, we had 9 adults and 15 adults and 18 children who benefited from this program in West Niagara. And so in that time, we had staff working with them. They've established goals to support what they're trying to achieve in terms of their stability. And it really is life-changing for these individuals when they come into our program. At this point, we always need more housing units, and as you well know, that cost of rentals in particularly in West Niagara, is so high, it's become a barrier even for us to try to be able to secure units. And so consequently, we have families waiting to get into units in Niagara, in West Niagara. We do have a rent supplement through Niagara Regional Housing, but even with the rent supplement, it's still not enough. So we're always looking for landlords who are interested in working with us, who can see why it's important to do this kind of program. It's a great program for landlords because we guarantee their rent, we guarantee the condition of their unit, and we're working with that woman to establish that relationship with the landlord. And so it's a win-win for everybody who's involved. So then, the coldest night of the year, many of you are familiar, I think there are some of you that are already signed up, is the only event actually that we run through our organization. And this event goes to support the West Niagara Supported Transitional Housing Program. It will be taking place on February 24th at Mountain View Christian Reformed Church over on Bartlett Avenue, just on the border of Grimsby. And it's a great event. It's very family friendly. We've got champions here, Aaron and Margaret, who have been participants and helped organize the event. We're excited about it. We have our chili cook-off again, and I know that's always a hit. It's also really easy in the sense that it's a 2.5 kilometer or a 5 kilometer walk. It's late afternoon, so you're not, we make it super simple for people to participate. So we're looking for the endorsement of council and the support of council, and we're just to make it a little bit more tantalizing. Both West Lincoln and Town of Grimsby have teams in. So just, for your information. So I would also like to take this opportunity to do a special presentation, if that's all right. So, Councillor Pachariva, I'm wondering if you could come up. Councillor Pachariva, we had our AGM at the end of November, and we have Councillor Pachariva has been a great supporter of our work, both through Coldest Night and through many other ways, and we like to acknowledge people who support the work that we do. And this year we wanted to celebrate Councillor Pachariva's contribution to the YWCA. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to attend that night, so I hope it's okay that we take this moment to recognize your work and your support of the YWCA and give our thanks to you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I could ask questions too, but I think it's more likely that you want to ask me questions about either the event or housing, the program that we operate in West Niagara or any of the programs that we operate. And thank you again for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Thanks very much, Elizabeth. We very much appreciate your presentation, and it appears that we have a number of questions from councillors, so I'll start with Councillor Njima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I'm curious about the transitional housing relationships you have with landlords. So how do you go about establishing those relationships and seeking other landlords? What's the process?
So often it's word of mouth. We also do, we've approached realtors in the past. We've put the word out like I am right now to say, is there anything that we can, anybody who's interested in participating in the program. We've done information nights. It's become more of a challenge, to be quite honest. And it's a challenge to make the match, in the sense of how much we have available to pay in rent and whether that works in the budgets for landlords at this point.
So it's becoming more of a challenge related to the cost of rent and how it's increased, and also the need, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's good to know. It's good that you come and speak about that and plant those seeds again in our minds.
Yeah, so at any point, if you know of someone or anybody's listening tonight that might be interested in more information, please reach out and you can talk to me or I'll connect you with the staff that oversee that program and we'd be happy to give you more information.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you.
Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mary Easton. Elizabeth and Aaron, thanks so much for being here tonight. So I just had a question around, I'm looking at these numbers, and you're saying, the numbers from last year, they're pretty big numbers, and I'm just wondering what kind of increase you're predicting, or you have any idea what next year will look like with these numbers? Like, I don't know what the increase has been over the last couple of years. I know they've grown a fair bit, with some of the struggles that we've been dealing with, but I don't know if you have a comment on that.
I think, unfortunately, we're limited by our capacity. So wait lists, yes, we're seeing wait lists grow. Certainly our family shelter units, or any of our shelter units for that matter, are continually full. And we do have turnaways. Unfortunately, I don't have the turnaway numbers in my head right now, but the needs are continually, growing. My larger concern right now is for families and some of the changes that we're seeing in, again, more increases around the cost of rent. And so I think that that's unfortunately not a problem that's going to go away anytime soon. If anything, we're still going to see further increases.
And through you, Mayor, also, if you could just give us a little bit of a description on your skills development workshops. What exactly are you doing at those workshops? It's mostly just for the audience here and for
sure.
residents perhaps watching.
We have actually an array of different kinds of programs that we operate through our skills development. The workshops that we do for any residents that are in our programs. It can be everything from basic financial literacy, how to be a good tenant. It can be things around personal growth, like improving your self-esteem, self-care. We have anger management program. There's actually a whole list, and what staff do is they determine, sort of what the interests are and what the needs are for the residents in the programs as to what will be given out. Also in that bucket, we do a program for women engaged in survival sex work, and it's a support program for women in terms of safety planning, if they're interested in exiting and developing exiting strategies. And then we also, in that bucket of programming, do youth programs, girls-centered youth programs in schools. And also we do have another peer-centered facilitated program for women in recovery.
Great, thank you. I think that's really important information to get out to people so they understand what's available and what's out there. So anyway, the coldest night of the year, looking forward to it. I wonder if we'll have snow. We've had some pretty cold years, so maybe this year it'll be mild. And I'm glad to hear the chili cook-off is happening, so I just want to challenge everybody around the table to come out and support. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mary Easton.
Thanks, Councillor. And Councillor Pachariva, you're up.
Thanks again for coming tonight, ladies. And just wanted to touch on the importance of the transitional housing program right here in West Niagara. Because years ago, it was thought of taking those in need to the larger centers. But we found out that, no, that doesn't work because it would be uprooting the kids from school, and the social safety nets of family and that are here. So just wanted to hear you talk about that some more for people to know the sheer importance of that.
Absolutely. I think, it's sometimes we don't think about the fact that it's not just only about the financial resources, but it's also very much about the social supports. And we don't want to take people out of their communities if we can avoid it. So if someone comes into shelter out of community, unfortunately, it's hard to have a shelter in every community. It's difficult to they're expensive to run, to be quite honest, and it becomes really challenging. So if someone does come from outside of the community, we try to get them back into their community as quickly as possible. But just as an example, to your point, Councillor Petriva, it can be as simple as, grandma lives 2 doors down or a few doors down and can take care of the kids after school. I think there's also often a misunderstanding that, people who are at risk or have become homeless, there's a lot who are employed. And so you want to do everything you can to preserve their employment, to preserve what they have. And so programs like this become incredibly important because it brings immediate stability and gives that space to be able to work on, whether it's improving their employment, whether it's, maybe doing some re-education, whatever it is. And, we think about the fact that, often it's single-parent families led by women, and there are lots of barriers to being able to, it takes one life event and you're at risk of losing your housing. So being able to provide that program in West Niagara, where there isn't a shelter, it gives the opportunity for her to stay in the community where who the babysitter is, where the school is, where all of those pieces are, and perhaps even her employment. So it becomes really important.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And, groups like yourself come forward and the ask is, how can we help? Well, the direct help is do the coldest night of the year. Last year, our CAO and myself were the only ones that did it, and Mike just wanted to do the 2.5K walk, and I said, come on, Mike, we're in this, we got to do the whole thing. So begrudgingly, he did it. Dragged me around at the end because I had a cramp, but we got through it. So I would like to encourage all of council to join us this year. If you can't, in person, support us, support our team in the walk, right? Because the funds go directly to this transitional program that we have here. And thanks again for this award. I mean, it's totally unexpected. You know what my father always said? You don't do things for awards, but you do them to help your community, and you do them because it's the right thing. So this means a lot to me. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And Councillor Mikulik, you're up.
Thank you very much, Mary Easton. Through you to Elizabeth, thank you again for coming and all the work you do. My question through you, Mary, is with regards to programs for existing landlords. And what I'm seeing or what I'm hearing is that the wait list gets longer because people get evicted or they get rent-evicted or landlords just choose to sell. And I'm curious if because of the way interest rates are going, the way money is and the return on investment for landlords, is there any programs that are out there for existing landlords that have current long-term tenants? Because what I'm afraid of is that these long-term tenants, they get evicted either through new owners of a home, and then they end up on that wait list. So rewinding a little bit, is there any programs to assist current landlords that provide affordable housing?
So I think the probably the best program that I'm aware of would be any of the rent supplement programs, and there are a few that landlords can work with regional housing, Niagara Regional Housing, to participate in, so that it supports their tenants with the affordability piece and ensures that the landlord is getting their rent as well. That would be the only direct program that I'm aware of. I think it would be definitely worth connecting. I'm not sure if there are any other programs through Niagara Regional Housing. Of course, they're the experts on their own programs. But aside for that, that's really the only thing that I'm aware of. That would be kind of that match. And unfortunately, we do see a lot of, that's been one of the pieces that we've seen increase is, like you said, the rent evictions, the increases in in rent costs that become unaffordable for families.
Thank you. So just a second question, if I may, through you. Do you feel that government should be doing more to retain affordable housing as opposed to creating it? Because my feeling is that the creation of affordable housing, like it could cost $30 million to create 140 units, yet there's a reason why we have to create those units, and that a lot of times is because I don't know if we have very many programs or anything in place to retain affordable housing. Should governments be advocating for more of that?
Yes. In short answer, I think that there is a lot of work that can be done in terms of retaining the affordability of our current rental market. There's been a lot lost. Either there's been, the changeover from rental to condos. There's been sale, like you talked about, sale of a property, and then once it's sold, the rents can increase significantly. So yes, there should be more preservation done of the current rental market in terms of its affordability.
Okay, thank you very much. And the concern I have is that this problem, it was originally amplified when real estate prices went up, but now I think it's going to be a sustained problem, if not worse, as the cost of carrying houses continues to rise along with that desire for more return on investment when it comes to a passive income such as being a landlord. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Ranjima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I just want to ask a question further to Councillor Mikulic's question. I don't know if you know this much detail, but what income level would you have to be, do you know, to qualify for a rent supplement?
I'm not,
Yeah.
numbers don't stick in my head. I need usually a piece of paper with numbers in front of me. I think that if you look at the low-income cutoffs or the bottom two quintiles, when we look at income, are the most at risk and need the most support. So, but again, when we talk about Niagara Regional Housing, when they are looking at rent supplements, it is vetted through income. And so there is a scale. So if you would fit into sort of a scale of income, you would still qualify, maybe not as much as the person in the lowest quintile of income. I hope that helps a little bit.
I think I was asking a little more granular. It just occurred to me, I was curious what that lowest income.
For you. In fact, I
can find
think
it.
that Councillor Patriva and Councillor Timmers, we've done some of that work in the Housing Select Committee, so it would be in the minutes.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Elizabeth, I guess, you are very familiar with what's going on here in the town of Lincoln, and if you had to make a recommendation as you walk out of the room tonight, what would it be?
I think that, you have opportunities to look at developments that are actually in front of you that have affordability pieces, and affordability is a broad scale. It doesn't have to be deeply affordable to still have impact. And I think it is, sometimes it's not simple to take those risks, or not even risks, to say yes when communities don't fully understand what's happening. But I think it's absolutely important that we make sure that when the opportunities arise, that we take advantage of those. And so I think that's one of the key things that, as a council, you can look at when developments are coming forward. There's opportunities that could be coming forward too, where it becomes, when there's opportunities where there's partnerships or for more deeper affordable housing. And it's my hope that this council would be very open to saying yes to those developments.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. There being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Murray, seconded by Councillor Russell, that council receive and file for information the following presentation: Elizabeth Zimmerman, YWCA Niagara Re YWCA Programs, and the Coldest Night of the Year event. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is now open. And I will close the vote, and that carries. Thank you.
Here and flyers, if it's all right, that I can leave them with the clerk. Thank you so much.
We'll move on now, and item 10.2, and call on Regional Councillor Foster to provide his update. Thanks for coming out, Rob.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Easton and Council. Just to follow up on the coldest night of the year, Rotary Club has been in every year. They have the most money that they've raised so far out of all of the teams in West Niagara, so you guys got to get your act together and get raising some funds. So,
Consider us told.
yeah, there's the challenge. Just a couple of comments. I was listening to the commentary on Roma and some of the conferences you guys have been at. Roma's really changed a lot over the last number of years. By the way, I've never been to it. That was the, now I know former Mayor Hodgson used to go to Roma and some of the rest of the councillors, but not one that I've gone to, but it's becoming kind of a AMO Junior, if you want to put it that way, on how it's following along. And part of that is the fact that AMO itself has taken a very strong role in the programming that's going on with that particular conference. And the ministers, of course, do seem to want to come to that one, so that's a good thing. What else was I going to say? Oh, the other discussion in and around housing. More than happy to provide information from the region if you want. In and around Niagara regional housing. It's a big issue, and that whole area has changed over the last number of years. There used to be a natural cycle to people that were requiring help, but with COVID and with the sort of the shutdown, that's kind of stopped. Like, people are stuck within the system itself. So there seems to be more and more people that are needing help, and less being able to get out of that circle that's there at this particular point in time. So it's a big issue. We talk about it a fair bit at the region. We do have funding programs that do come into play, but it's a big issue, and it's a big provincial issue that's coming into play with this as well. So my report is really quite simple tonight. We haven't really dug into too much yet at the region. Both Mayor Easton and myself had the opportunity to speak to the governance committee that came in back a few weeks ago. That was January 10th. Boy, how time flies. I had the opportunity to speak along with Mayor Steele and Campion in the 11 o'clock time slot for that group. I provided my notes for you, and it's not, actually it was one of my better speeches I thought that I've done in a while, but I wanted out of that for you guys to understand that, my view of the universe, we can go and we can redo anything that we want here in Niagara if we want to. But we got to get the money figured out first and foremost. There is a huge infrastructure gap that still exists, be it at the region, be it at the municipalities. If we end up with other municipalities coming into play, if we see something rejigged, those expenses aren't going away. In fact, they may multiply as it's coming into play. So bottom line is that we have to get some of this stuff figured out, and I think that just needs really good discussion with the province to start them moving along the line, particularly with infrastructure. We have to get those monies freed up. You guys need it here. We need it for the wastewater treatment plant in Niagara Falls from a regional point of view. doing these projects like 16 million going into redoing pipes here along Ontario Street. That's just the region portion, and I know the town is putting in a lot of money to it. So bottom line is that the whole monetary end of things has to be thought through a lot better. And sort of that's a segue into construction season. So I watch social media and some of the commentary that goes on within it. Here's the bottom line. This work has to be done on Ontario Street. It's unfortunate. I, like many others, sort of scratched my head because this was talked about back a number of years ago. As Mr. Graham knows, the council at the time basically said, is there anything else that needs to be done as we're going through this? We were told no, but now there's piping that needs to be replaced, and we have no choice. For our growing community, for having things that aren't breaking, and we've had a lot of them break in the last while, we have to have these things redone. And so the process with the construction in and along Ontario Street is going to be treated as hopefully sanely as possible. People are going to have to remember that, if you're in a big hurry to get out of town, maybe you need to be leaving a few minutes earlier than you may have in the past. That's unfortunate, but I think that's some of the reality that's coming into play. And I think that's all I wanted to talk about tonight. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor. And I'm looking for questions, and I see that Councillor Brunet is up. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Thank you, Councillor Foster, for being here as usual. Thank you. Your commitment is impeccable. I'm just wondering if you could kind of bring some clarity as to the last comment you talked about in construction, that you're going to go to Regional Councillor tomorrow and talk about the state of the Queen Elizabeth in and through Lincoln. I think I have an understanding of where you're going, but I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, so there's two things, by the way, and I know you're going to be having a discussion. Councillor Timmers and I had a discussion back at the levy about looking at some changes maybe in Camden that should be coming into place. So, by the way, for that, I have outreach to the Public Works Department at the region. So when, if you guys believe that that's the right way to go, there's a process that'll kick in to go and review that. Yeah, I don't know if any of you have driven along the QE going to St. Catharines recently. Suffice it to say, I think small cars get lost in some of the potholes that are going along there. I don't know what's going on there. I have never seen that highway as bad as it is right now. And it's not just the one side, it's both sides now that's coming into play. I give the benefit of the doubt to construction and these types of things because sooner or later some of these highways start breaking down. That pavement isn't all that old that's coming into play there. So I really want to know, and we'll have the discussion. I'll be asking the question at the region and ask them to talk to the ministry saying, okay, what are you going to do about this? Like, is there going to be pressure put on Miller to go and redo all of this asphalt down in and through? And I'm hoping the answer is yes. There is going to be pressure put on because right now it's just not good.
So through you, Madam Mayor, so definitely have heard lots of comments about the current condition of the highway. I was hoping you were also going to speak with regards to the fact that, we seem to be having more and more and more major incidents on the Queen Elizabeth Highway between, let's say Bartlett and Victoria Avenue. The recent spill we had on the service road, was another indication of, our evacuation routes and just how it impacts us. So, I'm hoping that's being discussed at the region as well. I mean, we're certainly, from an emergency standpoint, taking it very seriously here with our team. But, I just hope someone at the region understands, the incidents that are occurring on this Queen Elizabeth Highway right out in front of the Grimsby, Beamsville, Vineland areas, and what it does to our community When basically trucks, major trucks are being rerouted through Phillip Road, and all these roads that are very narrow, that are not suited for that type of traffic they're having to hold. So appreciate that.
You're not going to get an argument from me on that one. I've had discussions actually with the MPP and also at the region talking about the fact that, at least in my opinion, the highway has become much more interesting since they raised the speed limit down in and through. We're seeing accidents. So, we used to have accidents, fairly regularly on the QEW, but accidents that are so drastically different than we've seen before. A lot of people dying in accidents. And so, yeah, I think they need to take a good look at it.
Just if I could have one additional comment through you, Madam Mayor. So Rob, you used the word "the view of the universe." So I know you're a huge supporter and you're always trying to champion projects. But the King Street project, Regional Road 81 from Lincoln Avenue to the roundabout, we've been waiting for 4 years for that project. 2020, the town of Lincoln redid the water main in preparation for the reconstruction that we were told at that time was going to be done for the opening of the new high school. The high school was delayed, and here we are now. We're still waiting for that project. So we had a public meeting at the Beamsville Legion, which you were present for there. Thank you for participating in that, so you could hear some of the comments from the residents. And we got some good news that night where we were told there was going to be a signalization at 30 Road. So some very good positives. But recently, Councillor Mikulik and I on the Public Works side sat and talked to Director Graham, and there's now word coming down that that project is not going to be tendered until very, very late in 2024, which means probably shovels in the ground again for another year. I'm wondering, two-point question, I'm wondering if you're aware of this, and if so, what is this all about budgets? And the second thing is, if we're going to be forced with a 5th year of delay, as you're very well aware, we've had another major accident at the intersection of Lincoln Avenue and King Street. And so, I'm hoping if there's delays, we can take these delays to make sure that we ensure when this does get constructed, that we make sure we put in the appropriate safety initiatives. And if that means putting something at Lincoln Avenue and King Street, I hope you're front and center pushing for that at the region. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so very, very good comments, Councillor Bernay, and I'm not aware of any additional pushing off that's going on with it. My understanding was the RFP was going out mid-year, and we were going to be starting into construction later in the year. So I will check into that tomorrow when I have my discussion with Mr. Tassone. And there's been a number of discussions in and around the Lincoln and King Street interchange. In fact, Councillor Patrive is also very interested in that. I know the two of you represent the at least 3/4 of that intersection. So my own thought is that I think we need to be putting a 4-way stop there. And I think as the construction is coming up in the near future, there's some opportunities to take a look at doing something like that. But I'm not the expert on traffic flow and engineering on these things. And I'm also looking forward to hearing what this council has to say about those types of things. So anyway, I hear you and totally agree.
Thanks very much, Councillor. I'm not aware of any delays. There hasn't been anything announced. Thanks very much. I don't see any other questions. So I'll ask the clerk to First, I guess I better read the motion. I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunei, seconded by Councillor Timmers. That council receive and file for information the following delegation, Regional Councillor Foster. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thanks, Mayor Easton, and the vote is now open. And I'll close that vote, and that carries. Thank you.
Thank you. That motion is carried. Certainly.
So what happens if you guys vote down my motion? Like, do I have to do it over again, or what? How does this work?
We've never considered that is a.
Okay.
I have asked Councillor Foster to remain for item 11, I think it's 11.3, and we'll have a vote so that he can ask questions or participate. We'll do that in a little bit. All right, now we are on number 11, and we have 3 items that have been brought forward for consideration this evening, and the first being from the council information package, week ending December the 8th, 2023, from the town of Plimpton, Wyoming, regarding support of Bill C-310, and amendments to subsections 118.06, subsection 2, and 118.07, subsection 2 of the Income Tax Act, and this is a tax credit for volunteer firefighters. Councillor Pachiriva has brought this forward. Councillor Pachiriva, do you have any comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Your Worship. And I apologize, too, because I missed the original resolution that came out in our package on November 7th. So it was originally put up by the municipality of Wawa. And, you know, it stated that the tax credit presently is $3,000 that volunteer firefighters get. So that works out to a mere $450. And then when you take in their 200 hours of training, comes out to $2.25. So much like we make here on council. But you know what? The volunteer fire service is a pillar in our community, and it helps to keep property taxes lower. Because if we were entrusted with a full-time fire service, I mean, it was something that is untenable. So Gore Bay, Bonfield Township, Port Colborne, the township of Alnwick and Haldeman, town of Madawaska, along with Plimpton and Wyoming have all passed this. And as chair of the Joint Fire Services Committee, I think it's something that we should do. I think it's important that we recognize our men and ladies of the fire services that put their lives at risk every time they get a call, whether it's a fire, whether it's an accident on the QEW. Councillor Brunei had brought up, or Councillor Foster had brought up about the driving patterns of people on the highway. You know that when there's an emergency vehicle, you're supposed to pull over. I see time and time and time again, it's not done. And I just, you know, I shudder to think of what they do. So I think this is at the very least something that we can do to support them.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pachiriva. And we have a question from Councillor Njima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for bringing this forward, Councillor Pachiriva, for bringing it up. I agree with you 100%. I'm just wondering, when we support these motions that have been brought forward by other municipalities, do we ever add a little extra to it ourselves? Because the reason I ask is because the fourth whereas, or I should say the third whereas in the motion says, whereas without volunteer firefighters and search and rescue volunteers, thousands of communities in Canada would have no fire and emergency response coverage. And I know that we've seen the numbers, what it would cost us in Lincoln to have a full-time fire, if we didn't have volunteer firefighters. So I'm wondering if we can sort of embellish a little bit by adding those numbers if we have them somewhere. The financial impact, it's not possible.
You're looking for the financial impact for Lincoln if we if we had a full-time fire service. Let's just check with, CAO about the advisability of that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I mean, I see Chief Hudson's also here, so maybe he has the numbers readily available, but I think the motion stands as a motion that we would want to support. We haven't actually tweaked the particular motion. If council wanted to develop a second and separate motion, or put this one on hold and come back with a specific motion where we speak to that, we could do that, but I think the thought was supporting this motion. And I'm not sure I would go as far as to say we can't do it. It means a lot of trade-offs. So we're mandated to have fire service or purchase fire service. So should something occur as this motion, I think, speaks to, where we wouldn't have volunteer fire service, it's not that we couldn't do it, it's just that we would have to look at other trade-offs and other things we stop doing that have a budgetary impact in order to do this.
A huge budgetary impact, and I remember seeing those numbers in a report from Chief Hudson at one point, and it was a real big eye-opener that we can't afford that, or if we had to, a lot of things would drop away, clearly. So I think that adds a lot of impact for me to this motion, or it would anyway.
So I think this motion is really an attempt to be fair and equitable to our volunteer service. But Chief Hudson, do you happen to have that number? Just, it would be an interesting number to be updated on.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Easton. Essentially, today, it cost approximately $2.8 million in salary and benefits to staff one fire truck on a 24/7 basis. So we would need at least 3 to 4 trucks to be able to provide the level of service we provide now. And we're essentially doing the same thing for a fraction, less than half the cost of one fire truck to provide service through 4 stations and 118 volunteer firefighters. So it would be prohibitively expensive to be able to provide that service. And as the CAO said, we could do it, but it would just be an exorbitant increase in everyone's taxes, which I don't know if that would be economically feasible when we have such a good service at the present time.
Thank you very much, Chief Hudson. So would you be satisfied, Councillor Ranjima, if we stayed with this template, knowing that what we're supporting is the principle of fairness and equity with volunteer fire service?
Absolutely, Madam Mayor. My suggestion was, I mean, this isn't our motion, so I'm supporting it 100%. Just when I read through it, I thought those numbers always provide impact in terms of how important it is that we support our volunteer firefighters and to continue on with that as long as possible. But I support the motion as it is. I'm fine with it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. All right. I have a motion then, moved by Councillor Pachiriva and seconded by Councillor Mikulik, that council support and endorse the resolution within the correspondence received, re tax credit for volunteer firefighters. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and that vote is now open. And I will close that vote. And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion is carried, and certainly if there's anything further on this, we'll get a staff report that will be, that'll bring us entirely up to date on the subject. Our next item for consideration is correspondence from the City of St. Catharines dated September the 27th, 2023, regarding the growth framework to support Canadian municipalities. And Councillor Pachiriva will speak to this item. Please go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. I heard Mayor Cisco talking on CKTB about this, and I asked him for a copy of it, and he apologized profusely and taking a while to get it to me. But it's, I mean, we're going to dovetail into the report following on the AMO Prosperity Review, and Councillors Reimer and Russell brought a similar motion forward after our budget, asking the province for a new deal. a couple salient points that come out of this is that we're operating on a 19th century system that was established to respond to 21st century responsibilities. And municipalities manage 60% of all the public infrastructure, but receive only between 8 and 10 cents. So this is going to the federal government and saying, we need a new deal, right? Closing that infrastructure gap and helping out municipalities, because it's just, and again, we see it front and center, and I highlighted it a couple times in the report that's to follow. Municipalities' revenue do not grow with the economy or with inflation. And we just can't keep putting these increases on the backs of the local taxpayers, so.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions to the motion? There being none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva, seconded by Councillor Reimer, that council support and endorse the resolution within the correspondence received, re the growth framework to support Canadian municipalities. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is now open. And I will close that vote, and that carries. Thank you.
The motion is carried, and we move on to the next item for consideration, which is correspondence from AMO, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Roma Annual Conference, which we've spoken to earlier. It was dated January the 23rd, 2024, regarding social and economic prosperity review and the draft resolution. That's on the back page of that. And, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Deputy Mayor Mikulik, would you take the chair, please? I'm going to speak to this motion.
Thank you very much, Mayor Easton. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. This is, becoming a constant refrain now, and I don't think it's going to go away. This document, I think, is pretty comprehensive. That certainly follows on the heels of what St. Catharines had to say. But the cry is going out to the provincial and federal government that what we're dealing with right now isn't good enough. The gap is becoming very, very large, and the growth that is being demanded of all communities requires investment, and this, again, is a very constant refrain. So there's shared revenue that needs to be found here, and it's just not available to us at this time. I think it actually is it's actually being compounded by the deal that's been made with Toronto. And so Toronto already has, through the Toronto Act, its own benefits, and I think that they are benefits in terms of where they can raise revenue that are not open to us. One of the areas that is most familiar to us in Niagara is the heavy burden for health care. Those costs, particularly as they relate to new hospital builds, are in the area of $400 million. The heavy burden for the province, so a social safety net is becoming a really heavy burden for people, because this is certainly something that we've never at the municipal level had to share responsibility for. There's about 1,400 homeless encampments overall in Ontario, and the cost to support homelessness has increased by 200%. I think those of you councillors in reviewing the reports will see that Ontario is has the second highest in property taxes in Canada, and it's really all related to the increased responsibilities. I found it very interesting that the cost per capita in Ontario is the lowest across Canada. It's about $2,000 more that we would need to see equity in this area. And also, the federal portion, as new houses are built, the feds get 39% of those new home total taxes. The province sees 37%, but the share to the municipalities is only 13%. So the solution really is in this area of a shared vision and shared revenues to rebalance our roles, our responsibilities, and our finances. We've got to put investment in infrastructure, and this, of course, is why we're delegating as vigorously as we are. We don't want to see our infrastructure decline, and we want to make sure that growth is paying for the improvements to the greatest extent as we possibly can. This will all remove burdens from our local taxpayers. It's a refrain that's being repeated over and over again by every municipality. I think this work that's been done here by AMO is really terrific. And they're certainly fulfilling their responsibilities as our overall representative to the provincial government. The circumstances are urgent, and they're central to our ability to solve our housing and affordability crisis. And now I'm really going to sound like a politician when I say that you'll find in the document that it states it's indisputable that Ontario's and our municipalities seek benefits of sustainable communities, stronger economic foundations, and better quality of life for all Ontarians. The motion that is on the back of this report is very general in nature. It applies as much to Toronto, Niagara, as it does in Timmins and the territories. And I'm going to ask the CAO if he has any specifics that he feels would be beneficial at this point.
Go ahead, Mr. CEO.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to the Mayor and to members of Council. So maybe a couple of comments and speaking a little bit to initially the first motion that Councillor Petrieva brought forward around the work that FCM is doing, and then maybe moving to the one that AMO is bringing forward. I think we're all aware population targets, population increase is happening across our communities. And in order to do that, FCM, I think for the last 20 years, has been really challenging senior levels of government to sit down and to look at a new municipal growth framework. What are the tools for us to look at revenue? Municipalities have what I think a lot of us refer to as a regressive model for how we raise money, and that's simply property taxation. And the other way we raise money is often going to senior levels of government. We need to make that a little more predictable. We need to make that a little more consistent, and we need to find ways to engage across the various orders of government. And so really, that's what that motion sets to do. In a lot of ways, though, the motion that AMO is advocating for, albeit to the Mayor's point, has a lot more data behind it in terms of over $480 billion in infrastructure that we own as municipalities across this province, and nearly $300 billion over the next 2 years in order for us to address those capital expenditures that need to get made. $100 billion of that, so a third of that is growth related. And with growth comes revenue to the province, a significant amount. So really what we're asking for, or what I think municipalities, all 444 across the province are asking for, is that the government sits down with us, the province of Ontario, that we look at joint revenues. How do we take on risk? Councillor Bernay earlier mentioned risk, and one of the sections he heard at Roma. So how are we looking at financial risk? How are we looking at investment risk, infrastructure risk, and the service delivery needs we need to move forward? So from a staff perspective, very supportive of this particular motion. I think it's essential we start to have these conversations. One comment that stuck out in the presentation from AMO is municipalities can't fix the provincial social safety net. So if you think about a lot of the topics we had this evening, you had Elizabeth here talking about the importance of housing, challenging us to do more as local municipalities. Absolutely, we're the closest to residents in our community. We're hearing what residents want, but we need the tools to be able to support some of these things. So I think, an important motion for us from an AMO perspective. I know it aligns with the advocacy that Councillor Foster and others on the board of AMO are doing as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for bringing this to the discussion tonight. Do members of council have any questions or comments? Mayor Easton, go ahead. Oh, did I just shut her? I shut her off. Sorry. All right.
Okay. No questions. Then, do you have any comments that you would like? I had asked Councillor Foster before. I'll carry on.
Okay, so we do still have Councillor Foster in the gallery. Do members of council wish to vote on whether or not we should hear any comments or thoughts that he may have? I'll take a vote. Those in favor of allowing Councillor Foster to speak again?
Show of hands.
Okay, looks like that passes.
Carries
Councillor
unanimously,
Foster,
thank you.
Did such a fantastic job earlier.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So just a little bit of history with this as we get to this point, and I'm glad you guys all had an opportunity to talk about it at Roma, for those of you that went. If we remember back to 2018, there was a movement afoot within the province to do more or less the exact same thing, and that is we made a strong recommendation to the province that we should be doing, we'll call it the 1% solution. In other words, municipalities needed that 1% of the HST, GST coming back in and through because we need it. I mean, like, what we're facing today is not new. This has been an ongoing struggle in and around how we're paying for infrastructure, how we're paying for programs, how we're doing these things as we're moving along. Personally, I like what we've done at AMO and what we put forward at this point, and I am hoping other municipalities here in Niagara follow the lead that we're doing here at this particular council, and putting through the motion to show that the serious concerns really truly are there. I'm not a huge believer that some of these areas are really high on the priority of the province when it's all said and done. And I'm not sure yet, and all of you talk to the MPP and talk to others as well and talk to various ministers. But I really haven't got a strong sense of where the priorities are of the provincial government at this point in time. But I'm hoping if we have a bit of a groundswell coming back in and through with this particular issue, I think it's definitely going to be helpful when it's all said and done. So I can provide some of the foundational documents to any member of council that may want it from our AMO board meetings. One of the things, by the way, of being on AMO, and by the way, I still recommend strongly that some of you at this council get yourselves involved with the either OSUM or Roma or even consider AMO as it's going on. But you get to have more information coming back in and through that can help with some of these things. An awful lot of it is closed session because it's in negotiations with the province on a variety of things. But certainly it does help to get the additional information back in and through. And we're very fortunate at the region. We have both Councillor Hewson out of Pelham, who's on FCM, has taken on quite a strong role there, and myself with the regional tier at AMO. So anyway, thanks. Those are just my comments. I really do appreciate you guys moving forward this motion.
Thank you. I'm sure you. Thank you for coming here regularly, and I know you still enjoy being part of these discussions that we have as a Town of Lincoln Council, and I feel like you missed them. I feel like you. Terrific. Do any other members of council have any questions or thoughts? Okay. Well, as chair of the meeting right now, I think this is fantastic. I think that, you receive a lot of this correspondence, and staff, paid attention to this one, or the mayor had brought this up, where probably a lot of municipalities, they might not. And I think this is important. I think it's extremely important, because there are a lot of people coming to this province, this country. There is a lot of talk about housing, but there's also, and the costs that are associated with that, but there's also the costs of the soft services and the other services that the new people coming to this country need, such as healthcare, such as other services that we have to deal with as a municipality or as a region. So thank you very much to staff and Mayor Easton for bringing this one up. Thank you very much. I hand the chair back to the mayor.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Foster. I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers, seconded by Councillor Rinjima, that Council support and endorse the resolution within the correspondence received, Resocial and Economic Prosperity Review. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is now open. I'll close that vote. And that carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. That motion is carried, and we move on now to item number 12. Thank you, Councillor Foster, for attending this evening and participating. We're now considering item 12.1, council minutes of December the 13th, 2023, and special council minutes of January 15th, 2024. Do members of council have any questions? There being no questions, I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell and seconded by Councillor Mikulik, that council approve the minutes of the following meetings of council minutes of December 13th, 2023, special council minutes of January 15th, 2024. Madam Clerk, please open the vote.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is now open. And that carries unanimously. Thank you.
That motion is carried. Thank you. And we move on to item 13, recommendations from standing committees. And we're now considering the following: the Committee of the Whole minutes of January 15th, 2024. Do members of council have any questions? There being none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Murray, seconded by Councillor Reimer, that council approve the following recommendations from Standing Committee of the Whole minutes of January 15th, 2024. Madam Clerk, please open the vote.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is open. And I will close that vote. And that carries. Thank you.
The motion is carried, and we move on now to item number 14, which is notice of motion. And we're now considering item 14.1, a notice of motion brought forward by Councillor Rinjima that will be introduced this evening, and we will seek an affirmative 2/3 vote for immediate consideration. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rinjima, seconded by Councillor Timmers. Whereas procedure bylaw 2022-04, actually, I'm not going to read it. It's Councillor Rinjima's motion. She's going to read it.
This is just to get it on the floor.
Yes,
She
to
can
get-
read the motion after that.
Oh, I see what you want to do. All right. Just a moment. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Let me begin again. Whereas procedure bylaw 2022-04 provides that notices of motion shall not be discussed or debated upon introduction, but shall be included on the next regular council meeting agenda for consideration. And whereas section 7.8.5 of the Town of Lincoln Procedure Bylaw 2022-04 permits a notice of motion to be considered upon its introduction by an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the members present. And whereas it is deemed impractical or not in the best interest of the town of Lincoln to delay consideration. Therefore, be it resolved that the pertinent rules contained in Section 7.8 of the procedural bylaw 2022-04 be waived to permit the introduction and consideration by council of the notice of motion on the council agenda pertaining to a requesting funding to ensure compliance with accessibility for Ontarians with disabilities. So, Madam Clerk, please open the vote, and we will
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is
address
now open.
permission.
And I will close the vote. And that carries. Thank you.
That motion is carried. So now, thank you very much, everyone, and Councillor Rinjima, please go ahead and speak to the motion.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for seconding this motion. You'll recall, Council, that in October 16th of last year, the Chair of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee and accessibility consultant Donna Harrington came and spoke to us about the AODA requirements that have been rolled out over the years, and that the hammer's finally going to drop at the end of 2024 when everyone has to meet these requirements under the AODA, and can be very expensive to meet a lot of the expensive and complicated to meet these requirements. And I was reading an article in I think it was the Hamilton Spectator the other day that said as much as 60% of the public spaces in a lot of the major cities in Canada don't even come close to meeting those standards. So we don't really know what's going to happen in terms of enforcing the AODA at the end of 2024, but I think it's important that some help be out there for those that have to meet these standards, and it's the right thing to do. So I'm going to read the motion. Whereas the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, AODA, strives to create a more accessible Ontario for individuals with disabilities, and whereas businesses play a crucial role in fostering inclusivity and accessibility for all members of society, and whereas financial support is essential for businesses to meet the requirements outlined in the AODA and enhance accessibility measures and attract these potential customers by removing as many barriers as possible, and whereas over 6.2 million Canadians live with a disability and representing an estimated $25 billion in annual consumer buying in Canada. And whereas over 90,000 people with disabilities live in the Niagara area. And whereas the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee advocates for and represents persons with disabilities for Niagara area municipalities, for the Town of Lincoln, Township of West Lincoln, Town of Pelham, City of Thorold, Town of Niagara-on-the-Lake, Town of Grimsby, and City of Port Colborne. Therefore, be it resolved that the Corporation for the Town of Lincoln Council urges that the provincial government, 1, acknowledge the significance of businesses in fostering an inclusive environment as per the AODA. 2, recognize the financial implications and challenges faced by businesses in implementing AODA compliance measures, as it is imperative to allocate funding to support these endeavors. 3, allocate a specific fund dedicated to assisting businesses in Ontario to meet AODA requirements, ensuring accessibility for individuals with disabilities. 4, consider establishing funding for the diverse business size and sectors, providing financial aid, resources, and guidance necessary to comply with AODA regulations. 5, ensure that regular evaluations and assessments of the fund's efficacy are conducted to ensure its optimal utilization and address any emerging needs or challenges. 6, collaborate with municipalities, accessibility and disability experts and advocates, and local business associations to develop comprehensive strategies for effective allocation and utilization of the fund. 7, create public awareness campaigns to inform businesses about the availability of these funds and the importance of AODA compliance. 8, commit to ongoing support and continuous improvement of accessibility measures, working in tandem with businesses and disability advocates. This resolution emphasizes the importance of fostering an inclusive environment and ensures that businesses have the necessary resources to comply with AODA to contribute to a more accessible Ontario for all. And be it further resolved that the provincial government take action to allocate funding that is dedicated to supporting businesses in achieving compliance with the AODA, enhancing accessibility and inclusivity across Ontario. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Clerk's Department for the assistance in drafting this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rinjima, and I understand that there was consultation as well with the Joint Accessibility Committee of the area, which is great. So should we assume from that that this motion, if it's passed tonight, will also be picked up by them?
Absolutely. So thank you for bringing that up. The committee did review it and completely supports it and sent in a resolution to the clerk. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've covered everything. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote? It's, it wasn't included here, and so I assumed that it wasn't going to be considered, but I'm looking now for questions from council. So if you have any questions of Councillor Rinjima on her motion, thank you very much. Councillor Rinjima, could you turn off your, thank you, and Councillor Mikulik, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing this motion forward, too. I think it's terrific. I was going to ask a question to our Director of Community Services. I see Shannon's on at the meeting virtually. How are we as a municipality targeting or tracking to meet these requirements? Do you know off the top of my head? I feel like I should know, but I.
Who are you asking the question of?
This is to through you to Shannon McKay.
Okay. Ms. McKay, did you hear the question?
I did. Thank you, Chair.
Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Through you, Councillor, to the Chair. I mean, through the Chair to the Councillor. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit off tonight. We are regularly meeting with the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee to do our audits. We are regularly putting in plans to upgrade and make the improvements that we need to. So we are well on our way. And I believe if you were to ask the clerk about the reports, or if you were to ask the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee about how the town is faring, we are doing very well on meeting our priority 1, 2, and 3 accessibility improvements.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think it's important for us to set an example with this matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Through you, Madam Mayor, always ready to add a little bit of information.
Go ahead.
There was an article in the CBC recently that the province of Ontario has been asked by municipalities to look at, as we move forward and the deadline looms in 2025, where funding will come from, because there's still some new builds are something we incorporate a lot of this into, and a lot of the new things we're doing around park development, around facility upgrades. What we're finding is with some of the existing facilities that we have, maybe not here in Lincoln, but collectively, some municipalities here in Niagara are experiencing some challenges. And so Ontario cities need help was the headline of that article in the CBC. And so we continue to advocate with the province, as we have on other issues, to get more funding, or for the province to open up pockets or elements of funding so that we can find ourselves in a position that we can help advocate for either those groups and organizations that require them, or ourselves moving forward as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. CAO. I don't see any other questions, so Madam Clerk, I'll ask you to open the vote.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is now open. And And I will close that vote. And that carries. Thank you.
And the motion is carried. Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Benjima, for your work, and Madam Clerk for supporting Councillor on this very important motion. We move on now to item 15, which is reports of municipal officers. And I do have a report this evening, and I'm going to continue on from the first item on the agenda, which was Councillors Brunet and Pachariva speaking about our delegations because the discussions are ongoing. So I'm incorporating that ongoing discussion and the development of some of those conversations in my report. Just for information, tomorrow is committee day for me at the region, and so I'll be attending Public Health and Public Works, and I'll certainly be asking the question, Councillor Brunet, about those deadlines. The first item that I would like to speak to is my own presentation that was a part of the Provincial Governance Committee. You've all received a copy of that in advance of January the 10th. And I spoke in the first tranche of speakers with Chair Bradley and with Mayor Ugolini. And I spoke to matters that related to shared services that had already been endorsed by formal motion by Lincoln Council, specifically asking also for the province to provide more direction based on our already demonstrated willingness to improve efficiency and effectiveness. And I would certainly say that the motion that we approved a little earlier in terms of revenue generation and having a more effective division of services, even to the point of uploading, would be part and parcel of that. When I was asked by MPP Sam Oosterhoff about One Niagara, I clarified my response as a personal opinion. We have never talked about that here, and it's not an opinion of council. So I made it clear that it was my opinion. I don't support One Niagara, but I do support further amalgamation, and that is essentially based on what I would consider to be a continuance in maintaining local decision-making among three West Niagara municipalities that have similar roots and similar values. The One Niagara idea will undoubtedly continue to come up until eventually it will be an appropriate option, probably somewhere around 2030, if you think about the population that we'll be looking at that time. A number of us have attended more grand openings. We went to Lincoln Kitchens and the Flawless Medi Spa. Penny's Restaurant has opened in Vineland. It's very, very, very busy. And then this past weekend, the Camden General Store and Coffee Shop opened, which I had a chance to see Tess and Andrew, and they've done a complete rework. And it's really pretty neat, isn't it, Councillor Timmers? It's a great addition to the community, and you can see how it's becoming its own kind of hub. I wrote a letter of support to Civic Connect for their 2024 program and their request to the Minister of Labor. They provided 250,000 hours of upskill for 500 Niagara youth, including many from Lincoln. And the program supported 250 projects with local business. So we'll certainly be looking, hopefully again, for a third year of support for them. The Great Lakes Memorandum of Understanding is a document that was signed by myself as the Canadian chair of the Shoreline Resilience Committee. And we had members there, other members of the board were there, as well as the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, Graydon Smith. And that document represents publication that I will get out to you. It was written by the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority and is directly related to the shoreline in Lincoln, particularly in the area of the 15 Mile Creek. On January the 24th, I attended a workshop that was arranged by it was an education session on homelessness that was arranged by the Public Health Department. And Dr. Ian de Jong attended again. This is the second time that I've heard him speak. I have his most recent book in my office if anybody wants to borrow it. And there's no question in his mind that the solution to homelessness is housing, and quite a variety of types. He provides a lot of very, very strong scientific evidence to back up his observations that he's made across the world. On January 25th, I attended the Quilt of Honor presentation that was at the Jacob. This was well published in the paper. The woman that it was presented to, Miss Janie, she's 103, I believe, and about to turn 104 in a few weeks. On February the 2nd, MPP Oosterhoff arranged for Minister Surma to meet with the CAO and myself and Mr. Deanny at Prudhoe so that she could come and have a look at the plans for the property there, and so that we could show her some of the elements that we talked about in our delegation with her. And she was very, very impressed, and most impressed with the mixed housing that's been presented in the documentation. Now, that evening, I took a cab to Niagara Falls to represent the municipality at a reception that was hosted by MPP Oosterhoff. And I want to tell you that I really was earning my living that night, because I think I'll tell you about some of the people I met with. I met with Minister Bethan Falvey's Finance, thanked him for the work that was accomplished around the 6% excise tax on local wine. And there were certainly many wineries there that night, so that's a big, big story. I had a chat again with Minister Graydon Smith of Natural Resources and Forestry. I spoke to him about excess soil management, which has now been further continuation locally between the MPCA and the town. And I'm going to ask the CAO to jump in and talk about this, because this is a very, very, very important subject to me. I'm very concerned about the health of our soil with everything that's coming in from all over the place. But Mike has some great news about that, so he'll chime in here in a minute. Also, you've heard about the Auditor General's audit on aggregates. I'm a member of TORC, I'm the AMO representative at the Ontario Aggregate Resources Corporation. And I've also been invited as a board member to attend the Ontario Sand and Gravel Conference, which is on February 21st and 22nd. I'll have an opportunity to speak to the new executive director of OSGA and talk to him about some of the issues around the fees and the licenses and the tonnage that have been avoided by a large number of producers. I will be very surprised if I see any names from Niagara on that list, but we're going to make sure that anybody that isn't paying is in the future, because all of that revenue we need. And I want to thank Councillor Brunet for his work on TAPMO. It's very important that we have this circle of information that goes from all these related ministries to make sure that we can get the work done that we need to in a timely fashion. I met with Minister Calandra for the first time. He's the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, as you know. I spoke to him about Prudhoms and the work that's being done in Beamsville on Ontario Street and the essential nature of the funding that we hope to be receiving from Minister Surma. And I basically reinforced with him that Bill 23 there are many good things in Bill 23, but they need to be consistent in the way they approach these policies and move on. I spoke with Minister Stan Cho, he's the Minister of Long-Term Care, and thanked him for the important decision that was made around accreditation in long-term care facilities. I spoke with Michael Ford, and this is the second conversation that I've had with him. He's the Minister of Citizenship and Multiculturalism. He visited the museum it was either in late November or I think it was in late November, and I spoke to him again about the base funding for both museums and libraries that hasn't changed in over 20 years. I also requested again, as I did when I met with him on that visit, that we continue to require an adjustment to Bill 23 and the pieces that were put into the Heritage Act and the deadlines that have been outlined in regard to the removal of houses that are listed on the heritage registers. And Mr. CAO, I believe that we should send further written correspondence to him. I met with Minister Sylvia Jones, the Minister of Health, just providing her with an update on West Lincoln Memorial Hospital and the important work that she is doing right now on the recruitment of health professionals and the removal of red tape around bringing more health professionals into the country. I saw Carolyn Mulrooney, who's no longer the Minister of Transport, but I certainly spoke to her about the fact that to thank her for meeting with us and allowing us to keep her up to date and for maintaining the file on that important matter. And again, when I saw Minister Surma that evening, I'd already seen her in the morning, so it was really more of a social chat than anything else. I spoke with Minister Lisa Thompson, the Minister of Agriculture, and thanked her for this significant and serious work that her ministry has been supporting on irrigation and the facilitation of joint cooperative work in agriculture and generally across the province. I spoke with Minister Rob Flock, who is the Associate Minister of Housing, again reinforcing our plan for Prudhoms, the work in Beamsville, and the annual average housing starts that we are projecting at 329 homes up to 2030. And finally, I'd like to thank and congratulate Inspector Chris Lamache, who has been our staff sergeant at 8th District for, I think, 2 years now. And I want to welcome Staff Sergeant Sarah Rose, who to her new position, and I know that we'll be meeting with her very, very soon. Inspector Lamache was very attentive to the town around safety issues, and particularly as we opened new parks and some of our youth were flexing their muscles a bit in terms of how the property was going to be used. So that's my report this evening. Just one moment, I have to check. I'm going to ask Mr. CAO to make a comment, if you will, Mr. CAO.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
First matter.
So on matters, I think as it relates to soil, I do have a little bit of an update, and I know you and I and Councillor Brunet exchanged an email at a very high level earlier today, but just to bring council up to speed, Director Bruder and I met with NPCA leadership today. picking up on a conversation we had via Teams late last year related to developing a more fulsome MOU with the organization. So with a lot of change in provincial legislation, the role of the MPCA has changed and evolved. And so we touched base today wanting to start the work on that MOU. One of the key items that came up, to the mayor's point, was tree planting, but also soil and soil movement, and specifically as it relates to enforcement and our bylaw teams. Our bylaw team here at the town has an ability to do things that the bylaw officers at MPCA don't have an ability to do, and that make it much more tedious and time-consuming. So we talked a little bit about that. We talked about how does an MOU moving forward include some of that. Right now, it's ourselves in Fort Erie that are leading the charge on developing these MOUs. I can tell you that the staff, all three that were in attendance from MPCA, did talk about our soils, our excess soils and the various bylaws we have in place to address it, and ours is one of the most recent ones, done in 2020. And so we're in a good position there. But we talked about working on a regulatory framework for soils. We looked up and we were shared a template, which I can share with everyone to do a little bit of reading and some background information. The Canadian Urban Institute is the one that's really taken the excess soil bylaw to a different stage, and so that's what the NPCA is using with its partner agencies, both Hamilton and Haldeman, as well as ourselves. So a positive step forward. I know Director Graham, when I gave him a bit of an update, also updated me as it relates specifically to excess soils and our site alteration fill bylaw, where we have the ability to ensure excess soil regulations form part of that. So we are ensuring our own projects comply in that, but we're also on top of this particular issue. So more to come on that regulatory framework as we move forward with the NPCA and ourselves. So I'll be in a better position hopefully in the coming weeks and months to update council on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. CAO. I should also report that when the excess soil bylaw, when it was circulated, the town of Lincoln involved Vineland Research and Innovation Center. We also got in touch with Tender Fruit, the grape growers, and others that would be interested in making comments. And they also sent significant commentary back to the minister. I also sent a copy to Minister Lisa Thompson, so that when it came to her, that she would see what our concerns were. And this could be a very costly download by the province under the as the CAO has mentioned, around the matters of enforcement. And we know that we have a few areas in the town that are doing some pretty extensive filling, and so I am delighted that the staff have now taken this on to another step, a big step forward, in order to bring this into alignment with future legislation. So thank you very much for that, Mr. CAO. There is one item that I didn't mention. It was on a separate sheet of paper, but I think this is very, very important. Recently, there was an announcement about a new company in Beamsville, AMSI. And the reason I want to bring this up is because of the amount of work that has been done in the town, in the industrial park in the last 6, 7 years. It's really unprecedented. And I'm bringing this up because I know we all get really excited about it, but in many ways, it's sort of like getting a check every Friday for a few months, and then the next Friday comes along and you're looking for more rain to fall. So I just want to encourage everyone to be, I think, to assume a great deal of expectation, but also excitement when we hear about these businesses, because this company started out with 3 employees. They're going to be going to 70, and they expect that they will eventually be employing 100 high-tech employees. And this is so important because it isn't our plan to be a bedroom community. And it's businesses like this that are going to ensure that there are plenty of jobs for people all around. So I certainly welcome, on your behalf, along with you, AMSI. And I encourage you to read the full story about them. It's very, very interesting work. They design and construct electrical systems and e-houses or prefabricated portable power distribution buildings that house electrical equipment for a wide range of industries, including power generation, mining, industrial automation, hydro and electrical distribution, oil and gas, public transportation, biomass, and the environmental sectors. I think this is an incredible future-looking company, and it's certainly a high-tech business that we're happy to have in our community. And I want to thank our economic development partners and all of the senior staff for the work they do to attract this type of business. So that is the end of my report this evening. Do you have any questions about anything? All right, I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva, seconded by Councillor Brunet. The council receive and file this information. The following mayor's report. Madam Clerk, would you open the vote?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is now open. And I will close that vote. And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We move on to item 16, which is a motion to consider confidential matters. We have no confidential matters this evening. Item 17 is a motion to approve bylaws, and we have 7 bylaws for consideration this evening. And I'm just looking for my summary. Do members have any questions? Call out, make sure you refer to the number if you have any questions. Okay, I don't see any questions. I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva, seconded by Councillor Reimer, that leave be given to approve the following bylaws. 2024-04, bylaw to adopt amendment number 16 to the official plan for the town of Lincoln. 2024-05, a bylaw requiring land or cash in lieu of land for park or other public recreational purposes as a condition of development or redevelopment of land, and to repeal bylaw number 96-81. 2024-06, a bylaw to provide for borrowing for current expenditures. 2024-07, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 89-2000, previously 8928, being a bylaw regulating traffic and parking on local municipal roads. 2024-08, a bylaw to authorize the execution of a site plan agreement between the Corporation of the Town of Lincoln, Paula and Gordon Meretsky, together with any and all mortgagees that may be on title at the point of registration of the agreement. Bylaw 2024-09, a bylaw to authorize the acquisition of lands from Jesse Lynn Jones, JVO Lakeside Properties, Inc., and John Coaches for the purpose of the improvement and realignment of Lakeside Drive. And bylaw 2024-10, a bylaw to declare Lot 22 of Registered Plan 384 as part of the common and public highway system under the jurisdiction of the town of Lincoln as part of Haynes Street, not traveled. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is now open. And I will close the vote, and that carries.
Thank you, and the motion is carried. Item number 18 is a motion to confirm proceedings of the council meeting. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet and seconded by Councillor Timmers that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 2024-11, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held Monday, February the 5th, 2024, being read a first, second, and third time. That bylaw number 2024-11 be enacted and passed, that the mayor and clerk sign and seal the said bylaw. Madam Clerk has opened the vote.
And I will close that vote, and that carries, Madam Mayor. Thanks.
The motion is carried. Thank you. Item number 19 is council remarks. And I know, Councillor Brunet, I believe you have a question. Please go ahead.
A couple things through you, Madam Mayor. Like, first of all, just a shout out to Councillor Michalak and I, as Chair and Vice Chair of Community Services and Infrastructure, had our touch point last week, and I know that Director McKay and our manager of facilities have been under a little bit of scrutiny lately with regards to a particular venture that's been going on, and there was a newspaper article that unfortunately hit the press, which probably threw fuel on the fire. So suffice it to say, we met for probably 2.5 hours, and most of the discussion that day, we didn't even get a chance to talk to Director Graham because everything was focused around community services. But certainly, we came away from that meeting knowing that Director McKay and our manager of facilities are meeting with this, are meeting with all the user groups, and are professionally dealing with this. So just a shout out to them. The next item, Madam Mayor, is with regards to a press release, a media release that was sent out by our manager of corporate communications, as well as a memo that was followed up later that day on January the 29th by our CAO about a potential proposed new name for the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. I struggled as to whether I wanted even to bring this up, but as the week has gone on from Monday to Monday, I've received a number of calls, not only from residents, but also from some of our colleagues in West Lincoln and Grimsby, just asking, if we were talking about this at council, if we've had any public engagement. And more recently, over the weekend and today, I received a number of questions from some residents who are, saying they're going to put letters to the editor, and that's all fine and dandy. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. I want to preface this by saying I had the privilege to sit on the West Lincoln West Lincoln Hospital Community Advisory Committee representing this council for 9 years, from 2014 to 2022. Certainly during that period, there was an amalgamation with West Lincoln Memorial Hospital where we merged with Hamilton Health Sciences. So I certainly sat in those boardrooms, and I know how those conversations go, and I know all the different trials and tribulations that we've dealt with over the last 10 years. I guess where I would like some comments from staff, and maybe even you, Madam Mayor, on behalf of some of the residents, as well as anyone that might be wondering just what has predicated this, is specifically to the CAO's comments, where he indicated in his memo that there is a deadline of March the 1st, where it's imperative to avoid implications for the new hospital signage, including potential days and additional costs. I think we can all understand that. Where I think a lot of people are struggling, through you, Madam Mayor, to the CAO, is it states that the Hamilton Health Sciences Board is meeting on February the 27th, 2024, to discuss this potential new name where it would become effective for the opening of the new hospital. It goes on to say that the following must be demonstrated: that the surrounding community is aware of the potential name change and has been given an opportunity to provide feedback, that council members have been engaged, and that equity-seeking communities have been included in the discussion. From the calls I've received and the colleagues I've spoken to, it's my understanding that there has been no discussion. I guess it comes down to what the word engagement means. There's been no public engagement like what we had when we were fighting for the hospital, when we filled meeting rooms in Grimsby and West Lincoln and Lincoln. So I'm just wondering, through you, Madam Mayor, if the CAO could just elaborate so that our residents who are asking questions, who are saying they're going to put letters in the editor, can really understand the process on what is occurring here.
Please go ahead, Mr. CAO.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, and I will look to both yourself, Madam Mayor, to add any additional comments, as well as Liliana, should she have any comments, because she has been meeting with staff from the other municipalities as it relates to engagement or information sharing. And I know I've fielded a few calls from residents on the councillor's behalf. Definitely Councillor Bernay and Councillor Pakshariva had a few residents reach out, and I had a great conversation with one of them this morning, as well as some of the media that have had some inquiries about this. So I think the councillor is correct in that when we talk about engagement and checking off that box, which is something that HHS looks to do, the approach that's been taken is one where information is shared and where a Speak Up Lincoln page was put online on behalf, something that all three municipalities are doing, and then pushing people to provide their input that way. I know that I've shared with residents who have reached out that should they have any input, should they have any comments they want to make, both positive and negative, that I would make sure that, and I said this to Councillor Bernay, that I would make sure that HHS is aware of them, and that I would share them with any and all appropriate people once seeking permission. In terms of the equity-seeking groups, I'll let Liliana maybe speak to that in terms of how those are being outreached to. But I think, Councillor, you're absolutely right in your comment that the whole purpose of putting this information out right now, I think, was to inform the public and to get feedback from the public. I think you're correct in that we're starting to get a number of residents express some concerns, express a little bit of apprehension, and would like to keep the name as it currently sits. And I would say, as I've said to the media as recently as today, I don't think for anybody, and this isn't a decision of staff, so let me be clear that it's not a staff decision per se at all, that keeping the name as is still on the table. Your inquiry as it relates to the timing in my memo was specifically around the acquisition or the procurement of signage. And so there's a deadline to purchase that signage. As you know, there's a delay in getting some of these materials in. So HHS is looking for a decision one way or another on that so that they can procure the respective materials to make the signage. They don't want to put up a sign that says one thing and then have to spend more money to purchase a whole bunch of other decals and details to put the signage up that says something different. So that's really the perceived rush in terms of the timing. Should this have been something that collectively HHS and the three municipalities communicated or sought outreach on earlier? Probably. I think it was a matter of those groups all coming together, trying to get 4 groups, including the Region 5 groups, at the table to have these particular conversations. But as it pertains to the request to change the name, again, nothing that staff necessarily had anything to do with, and nothing that I think each of the municipalities are particularly married to. HHS has shared with the municipalities that the whole geographic location as it relates to hospital changes is something that they're seeing with their conversations with Niagara Health. When you look at the South Niagara Hospital and that naming or that reference in terms of geography, and so believed it made a lot of sense. But again, I can tell you, I don't think, not having conversations at least today with HHS, that anybody's married one way or another to the name changing to Niagara West Memorial Hospital. So should we get a lot of feedback, which I anticipate we may, I don't believe there's any risk, harm, or concern with maintaining the name as it currently sits. So I don't know, Liliana, a little bit on maybe the outreach to our equity-seeking groups specifically, and I don't know if Mary Easton has some comments on behalf of the mayors.
Liliana, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. We have been through HHS and from the local municipalities on behalf of the 3 local municipalities have begun outreach. So that has taken place just shortly after the media release. We did start reaching out to a comprehensive list of equity-seeking groups and are collecting feedback from those groups. We have not received any specific feedback as of yet, but we'll keep everyone posted on that.
I can add that the original request came from the foundation based on the information related to the timing of purchasing signs, and they were concerned that if there was going to be any change, that they would end up having to buy 2 sets of signs. There was, so it was a matter of do nothing or make some submissions to them, which the mayors sent the letter to the foundation. It was a matter of no change, leave memorial in or take it out. And the third option was the Niagara West Hospital, a Memorial Hospital option that reflected the greater community that funded it, although in speaking with the CAO, I don't know that that's, the geography of it is probably less important. However, it's a matter of how the hospital is perceived also by the province. And certainly the word community, the foundation was speaking to the issue of community, which they found a difficult word and felt that community hospitals were at risk. So that's really all that I know about it. And I have no idea where this will end up. Councillor Brunet, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I appreciate the comments from our corporate communication manager as well as the CAO and yourself. I guess I would just have a follow-up question to the CAO. You know, the information that we are receiving and any potential letters that we received, any correspondence, anything that goes in the newspaper, will that information be passed on to Hamilton Health Sciences?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Simple answer is yes, councillor. I've put their vice president who's handling most of the correspondence on notice that I anticipate some coming, both as a result of this evening, as well as a result of some recent media stories, and that I would be sending those as directed by council, because I anticipated that would be occurring, to him to share on behalf, to share with the board and any other appropriate staff.
Thank you. And Madam Mayor, I'm just wondering if I could just ask you one other question, something that's come up with the number of people I've spoken to. The memo says that in April 2023, acknowledging the widespread support, the mayors of Lincoln, Grimsby, and West Lincoln, and the chair of Niagara Region jointly requested a change in the hospital's name to West Niagara Memorial Hospital. So that was back in April of 2023. Was there conversations that took place? You know, the hospital's been around for 70 years, as you're well aware. You know, it's one thing to talk about the current foundation and the board of the foundation, but a lot of people very concerned about the history, the heritage surrounding a hospital, which we've all been fighting for decades. So, you know, there's many people that made donors to the foundation, not only just for the hospital, for equipment, for CT scans, and then we have, of course, the auxiliary, which is really the glue, the mortar of that hospital, the volunteers. Has there been discussions about a name change with donors and with auxiliary volunteer people?
I can't tell you that because that wasn't the question that we were asked.
Okay.
That I have absolutely no knowledge of anything.
Okay. I guess what it is like there's just people struggling with the fact that HHS's own policy and procedure seems to say that the following must be demonstrated. Engagement, council engagement. where is the council engagement? Like, if that article wouldn't have gone in the News Now last week, I'm not sure that this council would have known about it had it not been for the memo that was sent out on January the 29th, and this is going to the board on February the 27th. It's no wonder that this community and the people that are speaking are saying that the process and the optics appears to be flawed. I'm just wondering, we've been fighting for this hospital. We should be celebrating the opening of this hospital, not talking about a potential name that the community hasn't known. I just feel like we've been blindsided here, and I just don't understand. Like, we've known this hospital, we put a shovel in the ground 2 years ago, and now HHS is saying that they have a stop date dead of March the 1st. What's been going on for the last 2 years?
Well, I can't tell you that. I only know that we were asked the question, and we provided some information, and for all I knew, there were other people that were being asked as well. That wasn't the question. The question was, as the mayors and of communities that contributed, Chair Bradley was asked as well. We were all asked. And so that's what, we submitted our comments, and it's going forward through their process. And I don't know how hospitals are named, but we see names put on hospitals all the time. I don't know whether or not who's consulted. I have no knowledge of that. But I can only tell you the process that was asked of us, and that's what we submitted.
Yeah, and that's great. I appreciate those comments. All we know is what we've been told in the memos, and there seems to be discussion that, we're saying it's to align with what's been happening with West Niagara, with an agricultural society and with a new hospital. And people that have reached out to me have said, like, they're not buying that because those were actual mergers. Those were where two agricultural societies came together and they actually merged and amalgamate. And 3 high schools that merged and amalgamate to form a new high school. There is no merger here. Matter of fact, if there was a merger, it took place in 2013. And for the last 10 years, we've been operating under the auspice of West Lincoln Hospital under the umbrella of Hamilton Health Sciences with no merger, and it's been working for the last 10 years. So people are saying, why now?
Well, I don't know why I have no idea why those examples are being given. But if you were asking me personally, and you have heard this from me before, this is part of a system. And this system was supported by every community in Niagara through fundraising. Not just people that live in Grimsby, but even in Stony Creek and the periphery where people come to the hospital. There's thousands of people that go to the hospital. But the funding has come from all of Niagara. So in my explanation to the media, which was not published, I base my comments on the fact that this is part of a system and that there are now services that are being provided in Grimsby that are going to draw people there as other parts of the system are either overwhelmed or they're just not available for whatever reason. So I don't think the name is at all out of line in terms of the service that it's providing to all of Niagara, not just Grimsby and the periphery into Stony Creek, which was used as the justification to support the money for the hospital, as you know.
And I completely agree with your comments at the end there. This isn't really about, it's not really about the name and the, the toing and froing of whether we should or not.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it's the optics and the feel that, where's this coming from? What did I miss? Where was the engagement? And so I just felt it was important that this be put on the docket so that we could let the community know that there's nothing being slid under the carpet here, and that our CAO is committed to making sure that any of the comments, concerns that we hear will be passed on to HHS, and for that I thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor, for bringing the item up. Councillor Mikulik, would you like to make a few comments? Just a moment. Come on. Boy.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
No, I know this isn't something on the agenda, but I feel like I'm curious though, like to ask, what is there must be a policy on naming a hospital, and I ask that because it's just weird, like, City of St. Cath, or like the Niagara Hospital just in St. Catharines, they've changed the name to the Murata Hospital for $15 million. So I'm curious if that is on the table with regards to a hospital naming. Perhaps there's a billionaire that is thankful for being born at that hospital and would like a legacy of philanthropy that would be, you know.
That's a very good comment, and I'm going to let the I'm going to ask the CAO to respond to that, because I think that's a very good comment, and I think the CAO is going to include who the big donor was when it comes to the hospital in Grimsby.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. So to answer your first question, councillor, you're absolutely correct. There is a policy that lays various thresholds. Some of that is based on the size of the build and the relative investment. So there is a threshold that should a philanthropist, as you said, who was born there, who wants to come forward and donate a certain amount of money, could, and the hospital would then go through the process of the name change. So with a massive donation comes the ability to name change. You highlighted St. Catharines, the general site, the new site, where the Murata family, the Two Sisters Winery, have donated $15 million, and so now the hospital will be changing its name to pay tribute to that donation. So that is possible. Those are the things that come along with funding hospitals and the new provincial policy that says municipalities have to come up with money. So hospitals have always had these types of deliberations in the past. I've been part of them in my previous employment, and they happen across the province. To the mayor's question around the largest contribution did come from the area municipalities and the region in terms of money that was brought forward or put forward in respective budgets to support the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital rebuild.
Thank you very much. I do agree with that to date. That is what's been the largest contributors are the three municipalities, and I think the residents deserve to be recognized for it. However, like there is, you know, to save taxpayers' dollars, if it's possible to find somebody out there that, you know, I mean, I think you only have one chance to really name a hospital properly, right? Like you don't want to have an auction every 5 years because somebody wants to rename the hospital and all it took was 15 million, and maybe 5 years from now it'll take 20. So I think it's essential to get it right and take the time to do it right the first time and try to seek out the most possible. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Again, thanks very much, Councillor Brunet. Did you have another comment, Mr. CAO, in response?
No, through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I just think at the last meeting that staff had at a staff-to-staff level, the door is not closed on a philanthropist coming forward and making a similar gesture at any hospital, up to and including West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. There was a review of policies that took place at the last meeting that staff participated in. And one of them was the naming policy, which also highlighted, like we've done in the past, cost for naming a room, cost of naming a particular ward and those things. And stuff that was present in the past. I know Councillor Brunet would have seen that on his time on the various boards with respect to West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. So those remain in place. They were updated and re-brought forward. And so, again, should anybody have any interest, that is still possible.
Is that satisfactory discussion, Councillor Brunet? Complete. Is the discussion complete enough? 100%. Good, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to item 20, which is the motion to adjourn, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Reimer and seconded by Councillor Russell that the council meeting on February the 5th, 2024 be adjourned at 20:29 hours. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is now open. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to just ask everyone that you are in confirmation, and I will put it in. Okay, excellent. And that carries, Madam Mayor.
Okay, the motion is carried. Motion is, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.